In Albert Camus' novel The Stranger, the main character, Meursault, often feels estranged from the world around him in a peculiar way. He does not adhere to societal conventions, struggles to naturally assimilate into his social environment, and often reacts unusually to events. For example, when his mother dies, his indifference leads others to believe that he is callous, which may raise suspicions about his mental state. After defending himself by shooting dead an attacking thug, Meursault shows no remorse. However, throughout the story, we discover that Meursault is not someone who intentionally causes harm. This makes him appear estranged and different, as he does not conform to common societal norms. While they may differ from Meursault in some aspects, many of them feel estranged and alienated from the world around them. These individuals often feel detached and unable to connect with others. This isolation may have specific causes, such as unfortunate experiences with people, or like Meursault, someone's personality may not entirely fit in with society, making them feel not truly integrated. Whatever the reason, self-isolation is not always risky. As someone who enjoys solitude, I believe that studying the darker aspects of turning away from society can bring much value. This video explores why we might feel lonely and how distancing ourselves from others can lead to dangerous consequences. Loneliness and feelings of isolation can develop gradually, but they can also occur suddenly. We may find ourselves less engaged with others, including our family and friends. 1. Why do we drift away? Perhaps the decline in communication has made conversations feel empty, and our interests have changed. Or maybe we are always tired or don't have enough time to meet because our busy schedules don't allow for social engagement. But like Meursault, we may struggle to adhere to traditional social norms such as raising children, working 9-5, or participating in daily social activities that we're not truly interested in. We may lose interest in interacting with others for various reasons. However, from a positive perspective, loneliness can bring profound experiences and help us develop personally. It allows us to seek wisdom and experience growth that we cannot find when surrounded by others. However, from a negative perspective, loneliness can stem from feelings of resentment or fear. It may simply be that we don't feel comfortable around people. The reason may be how they evaluate us and the feeling of being observed when facing them. Existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously said, "Hell is other people," implying that when we look at ourselves through the eyes of others, we may feel imposed upon and unfree. Whether we like it or not, the presence of others often influences how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. For example, when alone, we often enjoy our activities naturally and comfortably. But when someone else is around, a new game begins. We may alter our behavior, even wear a mask, even if it's just a subtle one we've created ourselves. We do this out of concern for how others perceive us, sometimes not even realizing that we're doing so. The philosopher Schopenhauer, known for his pessimism, asserted that only when alone can we truly be ourselves. From another perspective, Sartre also pointed this out. Loneliness helps us escape the pressure of others, allowing for freedom to exist. Therefore, loneliness can be seen as a form of liberation, where we are no longer dependent on the gaze of others. Another reason we withdraw is because we feel disillusioned with the world around us. Perhaps we lose faith in the social environment and how family or friends treat us or each other. We may have experienced painful relationships, betrayals, leading us to think that humans, in general, are cruel and harmful, and it's best to stay away from them. Just observe the antagonists in stories, and you'll see they often bear wounds from others' mistreatment, turning them into lonely and resentful individuals. However, disillusionment can push individuals beyond their own limits, a phenomenon quite common in today's society. For instance, people's dissatisfaction with specific political policies can lead to a loss of trust, feelings of societal abandonment or hurt. Exposed to too much negative news, individuals often develop a negative outlook that the world is only filled with decay and darkness, and the only way to survive is to be baselessly optimistic and live in isolation. Some individuals may develop a kind of disgust towards our human species to the extent that they want to completely avoid it. Disillusionment with the current state of affairs and a sense of Weltschmerz looming over our existence, like a dark cloud, may cause people to withdraw and watch the collapse from afar in isolation. Some view isolation as a stroke of luck, while others struggle in loneliness. Some individuals thrive in isolation, while others retreat and self-destruct. So, when we distance ourselves from others, do we ascend to heaven or descend into hell? However, avoiding others isn't always a bad thing. For some, being separated from the crowd can be a blessing. Think about the freedom from rules and the tranquility of not having to interact with others. 2. The dangers of estrangerman. There's nothing quite like sitting alone by the riverbank, holding a fishing rod, surrounded by vast nature, far away from the noise and hustle of society. Imagine a Taoist philosopher, someone who pursues Tao and lives in blissful solitude. Or the reclusive hermits atop the mountains in China. They distance themselves from crowded life to seek personal growth, harmonize with nature, and delve deeply into spirituality. Isolation isn't evil. It's how we utilize and experience it. Distance and feeling lonely can be as daunting as living amidst a crowd. In solitude, we escape the judgmental gaze of others, but face our own thoughts. The quality of those thoughts will determine our experience in isolation, not the surrounding circumstances. We might live in the most beautiful environment, harmonizing with nature, but if negative thoughts persistently haunt the mind, we won't be able to enjoy those moments. This holds true for those harboring hatred toward those who have turned their backs on them. They will remain immersed in pain and solitude. We often see the resolute decisions of those who choose to remain single indefinitely, whether it's the best choice or not, often accompanied by a sense of resentment. Similarly, individuals adhering to extreme worldviews often isolate themselves and fall into echo chambers, becoming part of online communities with distorted views of reality. Research has indicated that these echo chambers of morality can facilitate the development of extremism. A study analyzed over 900,000 posts from an online community on Reddit called Incels, short for involuntarily celibate. Dr. Mohammed Attari, the lead author of the study, noted, "We found that individuals living in morally homogeneous environments tend to resort to more extreme measures to defend themselves and their values. Sometimes in their journey, people can get caught up in feelings of anger and hostility towards a group, even the entire human race. In such moments, they may make the decision to isolate themselves in search of solutions for themselves. In some cases, this seems reasonable. However, when they become consumed by hatred and fear towards anything, no matter how justified they believe it to be, can they truly believe that living in isolation is better? Imagine yourself as a 40-year-old man somewhere in the United Kingdom, spending your days scrolling through racially discriminatory websites. In your mind, Western civilization has become a breeding ground where you believe that Jews are executing a plan to cleanse the white race by flooding the continent with immigration. Everything becomes bleak. Muslims, often becoming covert targets of the ignorant, are continuing to be subjected to the deceitful ploys as they migrate to Europe under the guise of labor migration. Isolated and often operating within these communities, individuals become vulnerable to highly dubious theories. Of course, the idea that some of their beliefs are entirely unfounded, while others may contain some truths but lack nuance, even becoming irrelevant to them as the only truth they receive comes from some new individuals. A Nazi from Harrison, Arkansas, often preaching on online forums all day long. Don't get me wrong, being indoctrinated by domestic extremists every Friday afternoon isn't any better. What I want to emphasize is that the coldness and self-imposed isolation can lead some people down dark paths. How would your life be if every day was focused on all this doom and gloom 24/7? How would that truly make you feel? Reality doesn't care about emotions, she said. This is true. But how much can you trust your reality when you're isolated and disconnected from the world around you, and the screen of your device is the only gateway to what's happening in the world? What I'm most certain of is that placing yourself in a very homogeneous environment, where no one challenges your values or shouts, "Damn it," is not a great environment and can even lead to extremism, Dr. Attari said. 3. Distorted reality. Looking at the normal people we often steer clear of, the ones we might encounter right when we step out the door, the majority, or the average, as some call them, not in a good way, by the way. Maybe you don't fancy these folks, but it shows they serve as a sort of basic probe into what's happening at the grassroots level, and I'd argue that observing them in real life, experiencing life with them, and seeing things from their perspective can be a great way to understand a community better than newcomers from Nazi-leaning Arkansas or extreme leaders, or Andrew should definitely say that. Standards may not be knowledgeable about everything that's going on, but at the same time, they're also a fundamental part of reality. How can we understand the truth purportedly about them if we don't live with them, talk to them, or interact with them? And the only information about these standards comes from members of our small group who claim their opinions are absolute truth. We lose connection with the community when we wander around with the majority. I don't believe that isolating oneself from the community is necessarily a bad thing. Perhaps not all echo chambers are harmful. However, suppose that in our isolation we are vulnerable to other voices trying to construct a reality for us, and these voices are completely detached from reality and trying to recruit others into a particular mindset or theory based on these voices outside of reality. That idea is quite chilling. In this scenario, we may be avoiding those we perceive as harmful, only to fall into the trap of others exploiting our isolation. Indeed, endorsing extremist views is just one part of the problem. Loneliness and alienation also have other negative consequences, such as mental health issues like depression and anxiety. I could delve into that and share my personal experience in another video. As mentioned earlier, isolation or distancing from others isn't necessarily bad. Loneliness can bring blessings as long as we know how to use it properly. However, if we begin to feel pain and unhappiness due to isolation, if we become destructive forces and get lost in a world of bizarre and unrealistic ideas, then perhaps it's time for us to rethink and change our direction. Sometimes it's best to drift in a new direction, away from paths that don't benefit us.